Alright, so this is the a rundown of the approach that I used when I was coming up with uh, these clocks here. So the idea is that the solar year is divided into 52 weeks, which is basically what we have, which is basically how the Gregorian calendar works. So, but to clean this up a little bit to make the 52 come out really nicely, um, one solar year is divided into 13 months, with each month being 4 weeks. And then at this level, we get down to the 77 hours. So 52, 77, and if you notice, it's going to go 60, 60, which is my number system. So each week is divided into 7 days, and each day has 11 hours in it. And that gives you the 77 hours per week, and you get here the 52 weeks per year. And then each hour is cut up into 60 minutes in exactly the conventional style. So 1 hour is 60 minutes. And that is primarily divided into three 20-minute blocks. And each 20 minutes is 4 groups of 5. Similarly, each minute is divided into 60 seconds. In exactly the same manner, you get 3 groups of 20 seconds. And each group of 20 is 4 blocks of 5. Now, because our day only has 11 hours instead of 24, your solar hour is 24 elevenths of an SI hour, or 2 11ths. And this percolates down through minutes and seconds as well. They're all that ratio, 24 elevenths of the SI analog. And then, as I mentioned previously, the solar day starts at average sunset, so that's what this marks right here. That's what this is aligning to. So this here, it'll tick to the next day as the sun crosses that threshold. So if it's in summer, it's going to be up here. It's still going to be daylight. Or now, because it's just after equinox, it's going to be dark before that happens. But average sunset is right there. So that's what we're using here, just so that everything is nice and systematized. Now, if we do 7 days times 52 weeks, that only gives us 364, which is 1 day short of a typical 365-day year. And it's really closer to 365 and a quarter, so we do need leap years as well. But we need to correct every single year at least by 1 day. So the way that I decided to do this was looking at the way my lunisolar calendar works. The first month, it contains the summer solstice. So I thought here, since this is so extremely systematized, very, very rigid, simple structure, what we'll do is we'll take that solstice, we'll drop in 2 weeks before it, 2 weeks after it, and use that solstice itself as your leap day, which is added to every year, bringing us to 365 days. And then 6 months after that, when we need a leap year, we will add in the winter solstice. And that should fall. So this one, it falls smack in the middle of month 1. But the winter solstice will fall between month 7 and month 8. And that should be within a day or two of the winter solstice, that leap day. But because everything is so rigid, things can wander a little bit. And then every other month is just 4 7-day weeks. So that is actually what this dial right here is indicating. So we've got the start of week 1, the start of week 2, the start of week 3, start of week 4, and then if we count off the ticks, so that's the first day, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2. I'm going to continue in that fashion. And I've gone over this in separately, but I thought I would note it here just for kind of keeping my own sanity. A lunar month is divided also into 4 weeks, but these weeks are the time from one quarter to the next. Usually that's 7 or 8 lunar days, and between, it's usually 7 or 8 solar days too, but it can be as few as 6 and it can be as many as 9. It can vary quite a bit. And a lunar day is from moonset to moonset, which is quite different from sunset to sunset. So then I knocked out a basic overview of this 4-year cycle. So I figured in year 1 of the cycle, we will make that be our leap year. So this little tick over here is indicating the addition of a day for winter solstice. This tick in between here is indicating summer solstice. And then over here we have, this is very close to this, we should expect to get, what is this, fall equinox, and spring equinox should be very close to this point. And because the Earth's orbit has a little bit of eccentricity, it's not going to line up exactly perfectly, but it'll be very, very close. And then the other 3 years in the cycle just don't have, don't have this addition of a day. So these 3 years are 365 days long, and this one is 366, just like a Gregorian calendar. So then we can actually just literally align it. So when the Gregorian year has a leap year, that's correspondingly when we add our leap day. So then I actually mapped it out for the next few years here. Because of that alignment to the Gregorian calendar, we are currently in year 3 of the cycle here. So here is, I have it so the dots are indicating individual days, the ticks, and then the date starting the week is what's noted. And you might notice that from year to year, these dates don't shift. And so here, 6/21 is our solstice, summer solstice. 6/21 next year is our summer solstice. Right here, we're getting the fall equinox the day after the start of this week, and that's occurring again here. And here we're getting winter solstice right on that first day, which is pretty much perfect. And then over here we're getting the spring equinox just like 2 days off of that first day right there of that week. So pretty close, pretty close. I actually wasn't sure. I like how it keeps doing that. I actually wasn't sure how well that would align, but it turns out it aligns quite nicely. And then this marks, that's perihelion, and then I use a C over here. Yeah, that's aphelion right there. And that doesn't shift around too much. It actually likes to land on this day quite often, the first day of month 2. Perihelion and aphelion likes to land right in the middle of month 8. And you can see how consistent this is. And in here, so this was 2024, what is leap year. So we get February 29th occurring, but then it comes back to March 1st. March 1st. And then this is in 2028, we get February 29th again. So this is a very rigid system. And almost always, you'll note that the equinox actually does fall on this day. In 2025, it falls on the day before. That included that leap day. Yeah. That, looking at it, that might be an artifact of when this leap day was put in. I don't know. I don't know if this is the best system, but it's a nice simple one. So, and it works pretty cleanly. So, I think for now it'll be what I stick with. Also, I have the next like 6 years mapped out here, so pretty simple. So this whole system right here is what this clock on the right here actually maps out. Pretty much the only thing it doesn't catch is those leap days. So this one here and this one here. This one is not going to matter for a few years, and this one's not going to matter for like another 9 months. So yeah, I think I'm okay for a little while, not having that accounted for. And there's other things not accounted for. I want to drop in the moon. I anticipate that to be a slight pain in the ass, which is why I left it out, because conveniently the sun always falls on the ecliptic exactly. The moon likes to jump around above and below because it's not the sun. It's a different object in the solar system, so it doesn't abide by the simple rule that, oh, it should be on the ecliptic. The sun defines the ecliptic, the sun's path. The ecliptic is the sun's path, so the sun has to be on the ecliptic by definition. Yeah, so that's going to be one thing. Also, it's the moon moves in a more complicated way than the sun does. And I don't even have the sun modeled fully correctly yet, so yeah, probably finish up modeling that correctly. This is pretty good. It's pretty close, especially around equinox like this, like it is right now, because it's right there. That point, really, regardless of how you draw this contour, like if you just do it as a sine wave, which is what I did initially, just as a rough approximation, because I was doing it pretty close to the equinox, it was still very accurate. If you were closer to a solstice, it would be pretty bad, but yeah. So some other things that I don't think I mentioned. This right here, this little cross, is indicating the zenith. This is Polaris up here. So pretty much this whole line right here is celestial north. This break right here will be geographic north. South is right here. This will be west. This will be east. And like I mentioned, the way that it's laid out currently, it is projecting onto the sky. So that you wouldn't hold this up to the sky and look at, like, compare it to with the sky that you see. It would be backwards if you did that. This, like, you like set this on the ground or something, and use it to like see what's, you know, if it's on your left here, it's going to be, if you have west to your left and you have this to your left, then these stars are going to be over there to the north of you. These stars are going to be south of you. Like, yeah, it just projects. Is there anything else? Yeah, these little circles here indicate these are equinoxes. These two are solstices. The big ticks indicate starts of months. The little ticks indicate starts of weeks. So the way this is set up, the equinox and solstice always lie pretty much on, as far as this is concerned, exactly on, but it doesn't really work out that way. But pretty much on the start of a week. And they wander through the month. So right here it's at the start of the month, or the end of the month, depending how you view it. Here it's 1/4 of the way through. Here it's halfway through. Here it's 3/4 of the way through. And then it's at the end / beginning. And the cycle repeats. And because my lunisolar calendar lines up month 1 having the summer solstice within it, I figured that was a really good anchor point. And that is actually more or less in alignment with Ogham traditional timekeeping, but also other regional and Mesoamerican timekeeping is usually the sort of the beginning of a year is usually sometime around this period. So that's where that's coming from. Yeah, I added a second hand. So this is the long second, so it's a little bit more than 2 seconds. But the timekeeping, the internal timekeeping that Python is using is by SI seconds. So it actually moves, when it moves like that, it's moving per second, per SI second, metric second. But the distance that it's moving is slightly less than half as far as it would if it were a normal second hand. I think that's probably about it for right now, where we're at. Let's see. Here's some code for it. It's a hot mess. I'm just trying to get it to work. There's where I hand coded stars in there. And these are actually just at integer degrees. So, yeah, their positions are not all that specific. They're not super precise. And what is happening here, this scaling, the basic map, yeah, I guess I didn't mention this. It's a 2-to-1. So the way that it's thought of internally is that each base pixel is 1 degree, which makes these really convenient because this is in degrees. So I can just straight up map it. This is 41 degrees, 41 pixels, left or right, depending on if it's projected or not, and 1 pixel up. 41 pixels left or right, 1 pixel up. 300 or 1 pixel down. Yeah. 346 pixels left or right, 75 pixels down. Yeah, so this is Polaris, so it's basically at north, but it's not quite. It's just off of north, so it's 1 pixel below. Right there. And then the size of the stars is regulated by their magnitudes. It doesn't do anything with their names internally yet. But what this is doing is it's taking that 360 by 180 and it's scaling it by this factor. And it was kind of a bastard because I couldn't. I had to tinker with it to figure out how to get it to allow me to do non-integer scales, and like it made. I still don't even understand why what I did that worked, but it worked, so I'm not fucking touching it. It required all sorts of stupid casting and shit. Um, like this is part of it right here, and this part makes sense. This part I understand. It's later on where it gets used, where like I had to fiddle with it. I don't know. I'm not a fan of Python, but you know, it works. It's relatively easy to work in, so meh, whatever. So yeah, this is just a rectangular projection. So degrees just straight up this way, left and right, which I then, you know, the Earth rotates 24 hours in a day or 11 hours in a day. So, you know, the clock, I'm just pulling the clock that Python can see, and I just take that 24-hour period and find the current time as a fraction of the day of the 24 hours. And that's pretty much telling me where the sun is. And then the date, basically the day of the year that we're on, tells us where in the ecliptic it should be. So that's actually relatively simple, but it's not super precise because it does wander slightly, like a day here and there. So it's not 100% accurate, but it's basically functional. So what happens is as you get further and further away from the equator here, distances get stretched, right? Which is why this is not a perfect sine or cosine, however you want to think of it. It's a little bit fatter. If you notice, it's a little bit kind of rectangular compared to a sine. At this latitude, it's not that pronounced, but it is there. So to get the rise and set times of stuff correct, you have to do that for sure. There's no way you can get around it. You have to map that correctly. Because as you approach these poles, the poles are singularities. So while Polaris here has a set position, because it's not at that, it's not exactly at 90 degrees up. If it were just 1 degree further north, it would be everywhere. It would be all across the top here at the same time, because that top is a singularity. So you have to kind of be aware of that playing with this. So if you were to draw a line like from south to north, it would come through the zenith like this, up, and then it would come along this edge, both edges at the same time, to this point, which is the same as this point right there. So some of the things, depending on what exactly you need to be dealing with, some of the things that are happening here can be a pretty decent mindfuck. Generally, you try to avoid dealing with those the singularities and stuff, but you can't always avoid that. Anyway, yay! Whole bunch of, it's not spaghetti code, but it's not the way you should write a Python program, but it does work. So, hey. Oh yeah, so here I was thinking of actually designing the clock. And I didn't quite go with all of the things that I came up with here. Like numbering the, there's no numbers on this, as you might notice. No numbers. But I liked how this looked as I came upon this. I liked this look, so it's like, hey, it doesn't need numbers. It's alright.